The Church of England is moving with the times, but not everyone is on board with it. In February, Synod decided to allow the blessing of homosexual couples and hinted that it will lift the ban on actively homosexual clergy. Conservative evangelicals are warning, though, that if they go ahead with this, they will create a real division. So is it the end of evangelicalism, or does the Church of England need more of them? To discuss this, I'm joined by Father Daniel French, an Anglican priest in Salcombe. Father Daniel, thank you for joining us today. I know you're not an evangelical yourself. You're, I would say you're Anglo-Catholic, I believe, but you're former Roman Catholic, aren't you? So you're quite high up the candle. But you proclaim that we need more evangelicalism.
Absolutely. Calvin, just some of the hard statistics in this are worth thinking about. As the Church of England has had incredible decline in the last 10 years, we've had a 36% fall. The evangelicals have actually bucked the trend. In 2011, 28% of churches were evangelical in their ethos, and that's gone up to 32. So I think, there's something there for us to look into and to celebrate. There's been some discussion online recently on the basis of a Spectator article by Theo Hobbs, who has said that we don't need the evangelicals anymore. And I feel quite annoyed by that because, although it's not my own tribe, I would consider the majority of my Anglican clergy friends are evangelical. They're from a lively, faithful constituency that have much to teach us and have done so, for many centuries. Can we truly imagine our denomination without this vital constituency? A third of the denomination not being part of our national mission.
Some would argue quite often the most prophetic third, too. I'm also not an evangelical. I'm also an Anglo-Catholic. However, I think Theo Hobbs's article in The Spectator was awful because he seems to conflate Anglo-Catholicism with liberalism. And actually, most Anglo-Catholics I know, one sitting right next to me, would be more conservative than most of your liberals. So I'm not quite sure where he's getting this conflation from, other than painting the idea that everyone that's conservative in the church is an evangelical, which of course is not the case. The divide in the church isn't between evangelicals and Anglo-Catholics, it's between liberals and conservatives. Am I right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you want to see what the future looks like, go to the American scene, the Episcopal Church, which I think in many ways has done what he is suggesting and waved goodbye to evangelicals, has had even more dramatic decline. Between 2011 and 2020, there's been a 40% decline in attendance, from 1.2 million to 1.15 million, in what was in America one of the major denominations. It's in danger of becoming a sect, whereas the Anglican Church in North America, which has broken away from tech, is now is growing and growing, and is a very interesting partnership between Anglo-Catholics and evangelicals. They are now one of the fastest growing denominations in the United States. And I think that's maybe where we should be looking at and saying, why is it that these branches of Anglicanism are succeeding, just as they're succeeding in the global South, and in the 90s, and I think particularly in the first part of the decade of this millennium, there was particular partnership in the Diocese of London as well, was there not, between evangelicals and Anglo-Catholic parishes working together and creating all sorts of plants. In fact, during that time, I think, which was very much the inception of Richard Chartres, there was a 71% increase in Anglican attendance, whereas down the river in Southwark, 10% decline in the same period. This is where we should be looking at partnering up with small orthodox parts of the Anglican spectrum and working courageously in in what is, an ever deeper culture war. This is not a time for us to be silent. I think what evangelicals, and I've noticed this from, again, my friends in this constituency do so well, is they answer that question that we so often dare not, is why turn up on a Sunday? And they say that we should turn up. The way that they do it is by telling us that our eternal destiny depends on it.
Absolutely. It's a good question we should always be asking every week. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about that because I saw your tweet, Father Daniel, and I think you're absolutely right. The Spectator article was rubbish, but you've put forward a much better case. So thank you very much, Father Daniel French, Anglican priest in Salcombe. I want to bring my dualists into this because, Emma, where Father Daniel is right, he's saying we should be more evidence-informed. And I know you've both read the article, but Theo Hobbes talks about we should be more pragmatic and take on board liberal theology. But actually, that's not pragmatism because liberal theology is what's killing the church. And I'm going to quote him here. He says, evangelical energy is too countercultural. Surely the church should be countercultural.
I think that his article was cringing, and for me it seemed like, as you were describing there, this lumping in of Anglo-Catholics with liberals, it just seemed to really misunderstand the situation. I was sort of reading it a bit confused, really. I think that Father French is right. I think that if you follow, unless the leadership of the Church of England want the Christian faith in this country to die in a ditch, they need to look at what is, where the fire is burning, where Anglicanism is being successful. That is in the global south, and it is in those parts of the church that are more conservative, because that seriousness appeals to young people in a way that the more airy-fairy, unserious, fluffy Christianity doesn't.
Nigel, I want to ask you about the idea of colonialism within the church when we see the Western church adopting these liberal values when it comes to things like same-sex marriage and trans issues, and proclaiming to the rest of the church, particularly the global south, that you guys must also lose your orthodoxy and follow our more progressive way. Is that not a new form of colonialism?
Well, I mean, it's why the Anglican communion is so fragmented, because that is going on. The problem with the church is that it still marches 30 years behind the society it is meant to serve. So on the basic question of do we want more evangelicals, not if they're going to make this worse. So if they're going to try and block things like blessings for gay couples, that seems to me a bad move forward, or rather it would be a move backward. I love their services, that they're all very lively and vibrant, but on sexuality, I think they have a real problem. We're going back to the same rows that we had with the Anglo-Catholics over women priests and women bishops.
Yeah, we lost that one, but let's hope we don't lose this one. Thank you to the evangelicals for standing firm in the faith.